I know it's the GOAT debate. That's what it always come down to, don't it? So let's see who's better. You feel me? My fault. Y'all want one? The lifesaver gave me a chokehold. Y'all comment down below who y'all think's the best player is. Y'all like LeBron or, you feel me, MJ? I ain't gonna tell y'all who I really think is the best until the end. You feel me? I'm gonna let y'all know. You feel me? Maybe y'all might catch me slipping up here and there. Who knows?
Jordan versus LeBron. LeBron versus Jordan. It's a debate that has captured the public's attention for the last several years, especially after this moment in 2016, when LeBron James beat the Golden State Warriors to win the third championship of his career. In LeBron's own words,
that one right there made me the greatest player of all time. That's what I felt. I was like, that one right there made you the greatest player
You
of all time.
don't just get to do that.
But did it?
You know what I'm saying? Never mind, I guess you do. I don't know.
Or is LeBron destined to finish his career in Michael Jordan's shadow? We've all heard the arguments from LeBron supporters.
He's bigger, he's stronger, he's faster, he's more durable.
And from Jordan supporters.
Michael Jordan was merely 6-0 with 6 MVPs in the finals.
But the GOAT debate isn't as simple as the pundits make it seem. There are a number of factors relevant in determining the greatest basketball player of all time. In fact, I would say there are 5 things that really matter when determining the GOAT of any sport. These criteria are, in no particular order, accomplishments, longevity, winning, statistics, and what we'll refer to in this video as the eye test. And to be the GOAT, you don't need to be the best in any specific category, but you need to be pretty good across the board. So simply winning 7 championships,
I wonder what the eye test is the whole time.
Isn't enough to get you into the conversation. When we're finished with this video, it'll be plainly obvious that one guy comes out on top. But before we get started, I want to clarify that this is not a comparison of legacies. It's about who was the better basketball player. If we were talking about legacies, Jordan's is nearly untouchable. Not only did he lead basketball to global popularity, he helped transform Nike into an empire, changed the way players played and how they dressed, and he even made it cool for guys to be bald. And while those things certainly contribute to MJ's iconic status, they don't make him a better player on the court. So let's evaluate the criteria that matter, and we'll start with individual accomplishments. Take a look.
Take a look is crazy word.
MVPs, twice as many finals MVPs, 9 more scoring titles, and several more selections to the NBA's all-defensive team, including once being named Defensive Player of the Year. LeBron has more All-Star appearances, but that's largely due to his having played more seasons. In fact, when taking into account retirements and major injuries, Jordan essentially played 13 seasons compared to 17 seasons for LeBron, making Jordan's significant lead in accomplishments all the more impressive. And that's to say nothing of MJ's brilliant college career, which saw him twice named All-American and once awarded College Player of the Year, at a time when the country's best players actually went to college. So regardless of whether you're a LeBron fan or MJ fan, you have to give the accomplishments checkmark to Jordan. The second criteria in our GOAT analysis is longevity. And this one is also a no-brainer, but this time in favor of LeBron. Not only has LeBron played more seasons in the league, but he's had a longer peak than Jordan. Jordan's peak lasted about 10 years, whereas LeBron's peak has lasted 16 years and is still going. And he's been incredibly durable during that time, missing significant time to injury only in 2019. That said, the claim that LeBron has been much more durable than Michael has been a bit overblown. Consider that Jordan played in at least 80 regular season games 11 times in his career, including all 82 games an incredible 9 times. Compare that to LeBron, who played in at least 80 regular season games just twice, and in all 82 games just once. So both LeBron and Jordan get high marks for their durability. But durability aside, the bottom line is that LeBron has sustained his level of excellence for a much longer period of time than Jordan, which puts the longevity checkmark squarely in LeBron's corner.
I know
That brings us to the third GOAT criteria, winning. As we all know, Jordan won 6 championships. LeBron has won 3. Jordan is 6-0 in the NBA Finals. LeBron is 3-6. Yes, LeBron has made the finals 9 times compared to only 6 times for Jordan, but let's not pretend that making the finals is the same thing, or even close to the same thing, as winning a title. Take a prime example from another sport, the Buffalo Bills. They're the only team in NFL history to appear in 4 consecutive Super Bowls. But is there a single player or fan of that team that wouldn't trade all 4 of those appearances for just 1 Super Bowl win? Frankly, talk to any fan whose team lost the season's final game and
Why would
ask
he
them
do
how they
this
felt
to them?
afterward. Almost universally, their feelings are of sadness, anger, and
Got
disappointment.
spanked.
And that's just
And
the
imagine
fans.
crying like that
For
4 years
players,
and
those feelings are
not
only
just,
magnified.
but the build up to
Listen
fall
to
is
Charles
just
Barkley talk
crazy
about
work.
losing in the NBA Finals.
Y'all
And
know.
I was just in shock when it was over
I
because
like Charles a lot.
I had to. I was frustrated because I couldn't wheel my team past Michael and the Bulls, and it. First of all, I don't think I've ever
he
gotten
does. He's
over
still
it.
dreaming
Number
about it.
one, but that was traumatic, and it's painful.
So we can
Good
all
people
stop with
always
this
get
false
like a good
equivalence between
spot.
winning
Like
the
you
championship
see how he got a
and
good
finishing
share
runner-up.
up there with the
In
Shaq
the
and
words of
them.
Herm
Like good
Edwards,
people always get a good spot.
You play to
He a
win
cool
the
cat. I really
game.
like him.
Hello?
Charles Barkley.
You play to win the game.
Hello.
Now
It'd
back
be
to Jordan and
mad-ish,
LeBron.
You know, it'd be like
As
that.
mentioned, on basketball's biggest stage, the NBA Finals, Jordan was 6-0. LeBron was 3-6. And frankly, that doesn't even show how lopsided their records really are. In terms of individual finals games, Jordan was 24-11. LeBron is 18-31. And that's because in 4 of
This
his 6
video
finals
y'all,
losses,
because y'all already
LeBron's
know
team
LeBron
hasn't
got the
even been
most points
competitive.
now.
Twice he
has
got
4
swept, and 2 other
championships.
times he lost 4 games to 1. That includes being on the wrong side of the 2 most lopsided finals by margin of loss in NBA history. Of course, LeBron fans will tell you that the only reason for LeBron's poor finals record is that his competition was so tough. Ironically, some of these same fans criticized Jordan for losing early in his career to a Celtics team stacked with 5 Hall of Famers, and they conveniently gloss over the fact that LeBron reached the finals so many times in part because the competition in his own conference was so weak.
Nobody don't want to
During
talk
the vast
about
majority
that.
of his career, LeBron played in what many dubbed the Leastern Conference because the East was so much weaker than the West. On the other hand, during Jordan's playing days, the East was generally considered
Right,
the
but your
stronger
strong
conference,
East can't
as
do
Jordan had to
nothing
battle
to
through hard-fought
LeBron's
rivalries
weak
against
East.
the Bad Boy
That's what they don't
Pistons,
fail to
Patrick
realize.
Ewing's Knicks, the Shaq
They
Penny-led
don't want to
Magic,
talk about
and
that.
Reggie Miller's Pacers.
That the weak East
That said,
that
if you
LeBron
want to
has
blame
will
LeBron's
beat
failure
your
in the
strong
finals on the
East.
level of his
Talk about
competition,
it.
I won't argue with you. But let's also not blow it out of proportion. If you look at the average number of wins of their finals opponents, you'll see that LeBron's finals opponents averaged 60.8 wins per season, whereas Jordan's finals opponents averaged 61.2 wins per
That
season.
doesn't matter.
So as it
when
turns out,
all of the
both players
competition
face
is
stiff
hard.
competition in the
So
finals.
how is he going
But
to
a
get
big
more
reason we don't
wins
hold the
if
93
all of
Suns,
us
the
are
96 Sonics,
as
or the
good?
98 Jazz
So now
in
you're
the same
facing a
regard as
bunch
some
of
of LeBron's
yeah,
finals
we're all as
opponents
good.
is because, unlike
That's what they don't
LeBron's
wanna talk
adversaries, Jordan's opponents never actually won the Larry O'Brien Trophy. Which goes to my original point, that the difference between winning the title and finishing
It is a
runner-up
big
is
difference.
huge.
I want to win.
And the reason those
LeBron
teams never
is
won
only
the
2
title?
off.
This
He won a
guy.
lot.
Look, I'm not trying to say that Jordan's opponents were as good as the Warriors teams that LeBron faced
Thank you.
4 times in the finals. The truth is that Jordan never played a juggernaut quite like that. But there's a pretty
The
good
teams
reason for
weren't
that.
good.
Jordan's Bulls were the juggernaut.
No, but how
They
come
were
they
the team
can't
winning
beat
70-plus
the
games.
people that
They were
LeBron
the
lost?
team
How
with the
come they
target
can't
on
beat
their back
Kevin? They
every year.
can't beat Clay. We
And
know
as the
this for a
Warriors
fact.
showed us,
They
that's
can't
not an
beat
easy place
San
to be.
Antonio.
As
They
great as the
couldn't
Warriors
beat
were,
Dirk.
they were
They
never
couldn't
able to
stop
string
it.
together 3 consecutive
That
championships.
Bulls could not beat all
Jordan's
them
Bulls
teams.
did it
No
twice.
way. Never.
So what's the greater achievement? Beating the juggernaut?
You probably
or
couldn't beat
being
Kobe
the
with Shaq.
juggernaut?
Nah,
Or to
just-
be more
nah,
specific,
nah, I'm talking crazy.
beating
Nah,
the
I'm
juggernaut
talking
one
crazy.
time out of the 4 times he faced them? Or being the juggernaut year after year after year? And then doing it again, year after
Yeah, but
year
you're a
after
juggernaut
year.
in your era.
There's no doubt that LeBron's victory over the 73-win Warriors was the highlight of his career. But it's not the first time that an underdog has won the championship. and there actually have been much bigger underdogs who ended up winning the title.
Dirk was like that.
But how many times have we seen a player lead his team to 6 championships in 8 years? Prior to Jordan's Bulls, only Bill Russell's Celtics ever accomplished that feat in the NBA, when they incredibly won 11 championships in 13 seasons.
Facing
However,
bums.
back then, there was an average of less than 10 teams in the league, and only a couple rounds of playoffs, so it was considerably easier to win a title. And no player, not even Bill Russell, ever had a run of winning 25 of 26 playoff series, as Michael Jordan did. And Michael's pattern of winning goes beyond the NBA.
I would like
Let's
to
not forget that Jordan has never won anything but gold in the Olympics.
Whole thing,
And he also earned an NCAA
won.
championship,
You know, if you like
in which he
that,
hit the first
but
of
was he
2
the
iconic
best?
championship-winning shots in his career.
Incredible.
All that is to say,
MJ
when
is
it
the
comes to
man.
winning, the checkmark clearly goes to
No,
Jordan.
he the man for that.
On to the fourth GOAT criteria, statistics. This one is a bit more complicated. I mean, how do you statistically evaluate
Different
two
eras,
players
yeah.
who played in different eras under different rules at different positions? One
Like
way of
that.
doing it is to
Y'all
simply
seen
look
that,
at the
don't
8 traditional statistics
like
of basketball. Points, assists, rebounds, steals, blocks, field goal percentage, free throw percentage, and turnovers. And we'll focus on per game stats rather than cumulative stats, since cumulative stats such as total career points and total career assists really speak to longevity, which is already its own category of the GOAT analysis. Per game stats, on the other hand, is more of an apples to apples comparison. So looking at the 8 traditional stats, we see that Jordan leads LeBron in 5 of them: points per game, steals per game, blocks per game, free throw percentage, and fewer turnovers. LeBron leads in the other 3: assists per game, rebounds per game, and field goal percentage. But that's a pretty simplistic way of looking at statistics. What if we instead turn to analytics? Probably the most well-known analytic stat is player efficiency rating, or PER for short. This metric was created by respected basketball analyst John Hollinger to give an overall rating to a player's performance based on traditional stats like the ones we just mentioned. Jordan has led the league in PER 7 times, LeBron 6 times. Jordan has finished top 3 in PER 10 times, LeBron 9 times. In fact, Jordan has the highest career PER in both the regular season and the playoffs. Another popular analytics stat is win shares. Jordan has led the league in win shares 8 times, LeBron 5 times. Jordan has finished top 3 in win shares 11 times, LeBron 6 times. And when it comes to win shares per 48 minutes, Jordan has the highest career rating in both the regular season and the playoffs. What about box plus minus? Until recently, LeBron was actually ahead of Jordan in career box plus minus. But after the 2017 season gave Russell Westbrook the greatest single-season box plus minus in history by a wide
That Sham guy
margin, the
was
architect
crazy
of box
work.
plus minus realized that the stat was fundamentally flawed. So he made some changes to improve its formula. As a result, Michael Jordan now has the highest career box plus minus in both the regular season and the playoffs. And lastly, what about value over replacement player, which on its face seems to favor LeBron James? Well, value over replacement player is a cumulative stat, and as previously noted, cumulative stats speak more to longevity than they do game-to-game dominance. That said, according to value over replacement player, Jordan owns 6 of the 9 greatest individual seasons ever played. And on a per-game basis, MJ's career rating in value over replacement player is the highest of all time in both the regular season and the playoffs. Are you noticing a theme here? Not only does Jordan beat LeBron in every ratable analytic stat, he consistently ranks as the best ever across the board. Before we move on from analytics, I want to mention a lesser-known stat called game score, another brainchild of John Hollinger. Game score measures a player's performance in a single game, so it won't tell us who's had the better career, but it does provide insight into who's had the greatest games. Now, we only have game score stats since 1983, so you won't see any mentions of Wilt Chamberlain here. That said, of the 100 highest game scores ever recorded, incredibly 19 of them belong to Michael Jordan. In other words, nearly 1 out of every 5 of the best single-game performances over the last 4 decades has been by MJ. That includes the highest game score of all time for Jordan's 69.18 rebound masterpiece. Comparatively, LeBron has had only 3 of the top 100 game scores. When discussing the GOAT, Nick Wright is fond of asking this question.
The aliens come down. You have 1 game to save humanity. Who's your first pick in the history of the world?
Well, Nick, I think we have our answer. Now that I've finished drowning you in numbers, let's be real. Hardly anyone watching this video knows how to calculate PER, win shares, box plus minus, value over replacement player, or game score. And why should you? This is basketball, not Goodwill Hunting. So let's go back to the traditional stats that we all know and understand. But this time, let's add context to them. What do I mean by context? Well, some positions are simply better than others at racking up certain stats. Let's take rebounding as an example. In a vacuum, if we simply compare the number of rebounds per game of Brook Lopez and Jason Kidd, we might think that Lopez was the better rebounder. The truth is, relative to their positions, Lopez is statistically one of the worst rebounding centers in NBA history, whereas Kidd is statistically one of the best rebounding guards in NBA history. But even a poor rebounding center can grab more rebounds than a great rebounding guard solely by virtue of their roles on the court. So it makes sense that, to understand the context of a player's stats, we should compare them to the respective positions that they played. When comparing LeBron James to the other small forwards who have played at least 500 NBA games, this is where he ranks. Overall, that's pretty impressive. Now let's see how Jordan compares to all shooting guards who have played at least 500 NBA games. As good as LeBron is compared to other small forwards, Jordan is on another level when compared to other shooting guards. He's darn near the top of every major statistical category, and there isn't a single category where LeBron is better than MJ relative to his position, other than assists. So to sum up statistics, whether comparing traditional stats or analytics, and especially when judging these players in the context of the positions they played, Jordan has a noticeable edge over LeBron. As such, we have to give the check mark to Jordan. And that takes us to the last category in our GOAT analysis, the eye test. And to be clear, by eye test, I don't mean which of these players is bigger, faster, or jumps higher. None of that is relevant unless we're having a track and field competition. And frankly, if physical measurables mattered, then George Murasan would be in the GOAT conversation. No, what I mean by the eye test is, if you sat an average basketball fan in front of a TV to watch a player in action, what would he notice that the player is and is not great at? Thankfully, I happen to be an average basketball fan, and I've had the privilege of watching both LeBron and Jordan during their playing days. So unlike a lot of my fellow YouTubers, I haven't merely relied on highlight videos. Here's what my eyes told me when I saw Michael Jordan play, particularly during his playing days with the Chicago Bulls. He was the best offensive player in the game, he was arguably the best defensive player in the game, he had the best mid-range game, he was the best finisher at the rim, he had the best post-up game, which is incredible considering most players who dominated the post were big men. He was widely considered the most clutch player in the game. He was regarded by opponents as the fiercest competitor on the court. He was regarded by teammates as the hardest worker in practice. And when all was said and done, amongst the other stars of his generation, he was the greatest winner. Now, when you're playing against the elite athletes of the world, to be the best at any one of those things is pretty remarkable. But to be the best at all of them? I tell you, it's impossible, but for the fact that we saw Michael Jordan do it. And when it comes to the GOAT debate, that's the biggest hurdle facing LeBron. He's basically being compared to a guy who was great at everything and practically had no weaknesses. Seriously, judging by the eye test, what's the worst thing we could say about Michael Jordan's game? Probably that he wasn't a very good three-point shooter. Jordan shot 33% from beyond the arc in an era when the average player also shot 33%. So when it came to three-point shooting, he wasn't good, he wasn't bad, he was just average. But remember that Michael played in an age when the three-point shot wasn't a big part of the game. During Jordan's years, teams averaged only 9.5 three-point attempts per game, and Michael himself attempted less than 2 threes per game. And if being an average three-point shooter is a weakness of Michael's game, well, then we also have to call it a weakness of LeBron's game. The difference is that LeBron plays in an era where the three-point shot is a huge part of the game. During the years in which LeBron played, teams attempted on average over 21 threes per game, and LeBron himself averaged 4.3 three-point attempts per game, or 2.5 times as many as Jordan. Despite the increased emphasis on threes, LeBron's career shooting percentage from beyond the arc is only a hair better than Jordan, at 34%. And it's actually slightly below his peers, who averaged 35% from three during his era. But to
33 to
reiterate, being
35
an average
isn't much of a
three-point
difference
shooter
there
was by
as
far
far as
the worst
three-point
part of
percentage.
MJ's game. For LeBron, it's not even close. LeBron, in fact, has 4 major weaknesses as a basketball player, each of which is readily apparent to anyone who has actually watched him play. First, he's not a good free throw shooter. For his career, LeBron has shot around 73.5%
In 2K, he used
from
to
the free throw
always
line,
make those.
which is
I
pretty poor
promise.
for a player who handles the ball as
In
much as he does.
2014.
In
I
fact,
know.
many analysts point out that at the end of games,
And
LeBron
I'm just
shies
playing
away
the
from driving to the
years and made
basket
him make
because he's
those.
afraid of being sent to the line.
He always been up there in the 98s
I don't know whether
and
that's
stuff.
true, but what I do know is that
know.
the odds of LeBron hitting 2 consecutive free throws is statistically not much better than a coin flip. Jordan, on the other hand, shot a solid 83.5% from the free throw line during his career, and MJ never shied away from contact at the end of games. LeBron's second weakness is that he's an inconsistent defender. Sure, he's had some years where he was elite defensively, which is evidenced by his numerous selections to the NBA's all-defensive
like
team.
that.
But he's also had several years where he's practically
Literally.
been a liability on the defensive end.
I remember
Compare
them
that to
years. He just
MJ, who
watched
during his
him.
Bulls days
He didn't
was
want
a
to get dunked on
consistently
because
elite
everybody
defender.
wanted his body.
In fact, Jordan
Y'all
is
know
the
they
only
wanted to
player to
catch
rank in
your
the top
body.
5 amongst all guards in both steals per game and blocks per game for his career. Additionally, Michael led his position in defensive win shares practically every year that he played for the Bulls, an incredible 10 times. LeBron, comparatively, has led his position in defensive win shares on just 4 occasions, and in 5 of his last 7 seasons, he didn't even crack the top 10 at his position in defensive win shares. Now, some will excuse LeBron's recent fall-off on the defensive end as a byproduct of his resting on defense so that he can have more energy on offense. And we can debate the merits of that strategy, but resting on defense is not something Michael Jordan was ever accused of doing. Heck, even as a 40-year-old, he was busting his tail on the defensive end. But what about the notion that LeBron's been the more versatile defender? LeBron supporters will argue that he can guard positions 1 through 5 on the court, such as when he guarded Derrick Rose for stretches in the 2011 playoffs. But LeBron's guarding the opposing team's point guard or center isn't something that happens very often. In fact, during his career, LeBron has spent less than 5% of his total minutes guarding the opposing players 1 or 5. So the versatility argument is highly exaggerated. And look, when it comes to versatility, Hometown Buffet may have a more versatile menu than Spago. That doesn't make it a better restaurant. LeBron's third weakness is that he's not a very good shooter. And this is a pretty significant flaw for someone claiming to be the GOAT. I mean, shooting the ball is the quintessential skill in the game of basketball. It's the part of the game that everyone practices, whether on the playground, at the YMCA, or in the NBA. Now, some people will contend that LeBron is actually a better shooter than Jordan because he has a better career field goal percentage. And yes, LeBron's career field goal percentage is 50.4% compared to Jordan's 49.7%. But recall what I said about placing stats into proper context. To help us understand context when it comes to shooting, allow me to introduce DeAndre Jordan and Tyson Chandler. We all know that DeAndre and Tyson were great rebounders and defenders, but what if I told you that they were also 2 of the greatest shooters of all time? That would be certifiably crazy. Yet if you look at all the shooting metrics, field goal
didn't shoot
percentage,
very much.
effective field goal percentage,
Yeah.
true shooting percentage, both of these guys rank near the top in NBA history. Of course, there's an obvious reason for that. As we all know, both DeAndre Jordan and Tyson Chandler take a lot of their shot attempts on dunks, layups, and putbacks, which are extremely high percentage shots. Well, guess what? So does LeBron James. In fact, every single year of his career, the shot that LeBron James has taken the most has been within 0 to 3 feet from the basket. In other words, dunks, layups, and putbacks. More than 1 of every 3 of LeBron's shots has been within this point-blank range, which is aided by his playing in an era where it's been relatively easy to get to the rim, particularly when compared to the physical era in which Jordan played. And just like every other player, LeBron is really effective from 0 to 3 feet, hitting over 73% of these shots. But how does LeBron fare from outside this range? According to basketballreference.com, LeBron's shooting percentage from outside 3 feet is 37.5%. It's even poorer in the playoffs where he shoots 35.9%. And it gets even worse in close and late situations. In the last 2 minutes of games where the score is within 5 points, LeBron hits only 31.7% of his jumpers. Look, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that these numbers aren't very good, which is probably why in the 2013 finals, the Spurs' defensive strategy against the Heat was to basically dare LeBron James to shoot. And keep in mind, this was against LeBron in his prime. Can you imagine an opposing coach using a similar strategy against MJ? Now, LeBron actually credits the Spurs for forcing him to work on his jump shot, but it's not as if his results have gotten much better since then. Here's LeBron's shooting percentage from outside 3 feet over the last 6 years. Yikes. Well, I'll give him this, he is consistent. For comparison, consider that in the last year of Michael Jordan's career, as an aging player on the Washington Wizards, Jordan shot close to 42% from outside 3 feet. While that's certainly not great, it means that even as a 40-year-old shell of his former self, Jordan was still a better shooter, a far better shooter than LeBron James. Unfortunately, Basketball Reference doesn't have advanced shooting metrics from Michael's Bulls days, when he was a significantly more efficient scorer. But few would argue that Michael was anything but a lethal jump shooter when he was wearing red and black. When it comes to shooting, all of us can recall practicing shots on the blacktop, counting down 3, 2, 1 before launching a shot at the rim. Well, if you were pretending to be LeBron James, you'd brick almost 2/3 of the time. Actually, that's not entirely true. If you were playing against a countdown, it would be much, much worse. And that gets me to the last major weakness of LeBron's game, his performance, or more accurately, lack of performance, in the clutch. Remember when people were praising LeBron for making a couple of buzzer beaters in the playoffs 2 years ago? They used these stats to claim that LeBron was better in the clutch than Jordan. But look at these numbers carefully. What stands out to you? How about this? People were using a sample size of less than 1 shot per season to make the case that LeBron was more clutch than Jordan. That would be the equivalent of polling just 100 people in the country to try to predict the winner of the next presidential election. So let's use more telling stats, shall we? Here's a situation that's often used to determine a player's clutchness. 5 seconds to go in the fourth quarter or overtime, and your team needs a bucket to either win or tie the game. It answers the age-old question, who do you want taking the last shot with the game on the line? It turns out that in the regular season and playoffs combined, LeBron has taken 94 such shots. That's a pretty good sample size. And how many of those 94 shots has LeBron made? 19, for a shooting percentage of 20%. Let me repeat that, 20%. Guys, that's not bad in the clutch. That's atrocious. Michael Jordan in the same situation shot roughly 50%. Yes, that's right, Jordan's performance under pressure was the same as it was throughout the rest of the game. And that, my friends, is the definition of clutch. So there you go. When it comes to the eye test, our eyes tell us that one player, Michael Jordan, is great at everything and has practically no weaknesses. And the other player, LeBron James, while also having a ton of strengths, has several obvious flaws to his game. And when all is said and done, after analyzing the 5 key factors of being the GOAT, Jordan gets 4 check marks to LeBron's 1, making this GOAT debate, well, not much of a debate at all. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that LeBron James is a bad player. He's a phenomenal player. Personally, I have him on basketball's Mount Rushmore, along with Jordan, Kareem, Wilt Chamberlain, and Bill Russell. He's just not Michael Jordan. And just to underscore how good MJ was, let's ignore LeBron and Jordan for a minute and focus on the other 3 players highlighted here, Kareem, Wilt, and Bill Russell. Most would agree that these are the 3 greatest centers in NBA history, and each of them has a strong case to justify his standing among basketball royalty. Wilt is an all-time great because he was an offensive force of nature, and he holds a ton of NBA records. Russell is in the conversation because he was a dominant defender and a perennial champion. Kareem also led his team to numerous titles, and in terms of individual awards and accolades, was the most decorated of the 3. Not to mention, he had the NBA's most unguardable shot. Now imagine a center that had all the best qualities from these 3 titans. A player like that would be the basketball equivalent of Thanos. Now add to that player the highest level of intangible attributes, such as a tireless work ethic, unmatched killer instinct, and an ability to deliver in the clutch. And now you'd essentially be looking at Thanos with all of the Infinity Stones, and no one would question whether this player was the greatest of all time. But the truth is, we don't have to imagine such a player. That player already existed. He just happened to be a shooting guard, not a center. When you think about it, Michael Jordan is the real-life version of an overpowered video game character. He had all the qualities we look for in a superstar athlete, and he had it in spades. He's basically Babe Ruth, if Babe Ruth played defense like Willie Mays. And that's why, even in comparison to the other all-time greats, he is truly in a class of his own. Simply put, he's the GOAT.
Y'all let me know what y'all think, yo. He like that, though. MJ. Yeah, I can't hold you. MJ, yeah, he like that. He like that. I ain't gonna cap, but one thing I will say is MJ, he's a great player and all, but hear me out right quick. MJ having that much statistics and having no many championships and having that's equivalent to putting me, which is 23-year-old, on a court with like 14, 15-year-olds. And then you see me having all these statistics that are high, and he's getting blocks, he's getting steals. He's like, you'll see all this happening. But what you're failing to realize is the people that I'm facing is the only reason why I have these statistics, because they make it easier, right? It's not that LeBron's a bad shooter. It's not that, it's just that he don't be open like how MJ was open. He's not facing people that MJ faced. There's a lot more harder teams that LeBron had faced that MJ never even played. We had juggernauts playing multiples. There wasn't just one juggernaut. You see how they said MJ was the juggernaut. They were the juggernaut. No. There's no such thing as one juggernaut in LeBron's era. We got like 4 or 5 of them. You know what I'm saying? Up to 7 of them. And it's like, imagine competing with that altitude of players for this long duration of time. It's like, but you're going to get tired. And your statistics are not going to be that high because you're facing people like this. And they're stealing the defensive player of the year. They're the ones stealing the, right? Because how can I get everything when we're all close to the same, like, skill level? You get what I'm saying? MJ was so much better than that era. Is he that much better than our era? No, he wouldn't have any of those stats in our era. He wouldn't even be in the GOAT debate if it was that same exact human who shot that same, who did exactly. He wouldn't even be in the GOAT debate. We have plenty of players right now in the NBA that, to where it looks like they have no weaknesses, but in all reality, when they're facing juggernauts, it's a different story, because you're just not gonna force a win when these players have the same hunger. So it's like that completely shuts down everything about the MJ. He was the best player of his era. But could he beat Golden State? Never. Could he beat Golden State with Kevin Durant? Never. Could he beat Cleveland with LeBron and Kyrie? I don't think so. Could he beat that even at Miami with Chris Bosh? And could he beat them? No. He couldn't beat them. He couldn't beat the Mavericks with Dirk. He couldn't beat the Spurs with Ginobili. These teams were real elites. Like let's get past the joke. Like, them was real elite teams. You can't beat them. You get what I'm saying? So it's like, and these are all facts. We all know it. The competition, like I was thinking when he had said it, like, LeBron played for the East when they were weak. MJ played for them when they were, the best, when they were considered the best. But even that best East couldn't compare to the worst East that LeBron was playing. You get what I'm saying? And, like, I'm going to say it again. The harder the players are, the less your statistics are going to be that high. Like, if you play against kindergartens in basketball, your statistics are going to be higher than if you play against people your age. I'm not saying that he played babies. I'm just saying that they were so far behind And that's nobody's fault but theirs. That's up to him that he was like that good. You feel me? But does it even compare to this generation's? No. Is he anything like LeBron? No. He couldn't even obtain those type of stats if he played today's game. He wouldn't get that high of stats. That's like you just beat a bunch of computers, and now it's hard to even get that good because we found all the players. Like back in the day, they didn't recruit the best players. They were still kind of racist. They were still like, man, they didn't recruit the best players. Nor did you know where to find the best players because there was no internet. There was no, right? Today, we got the best of the best. You know what I'm saying? It's just like that. And you really can't look past it. It's just like that. And I really don't like how brothers kept trying to bash LeBron. Like, he's bad at this, he's bad at... Talk about all the things that MJ was bad at. I know he wasn't that bad because he's facing people to where it's kind of easy to be good. You know, it's hard to even look bad when you're facing people of that altitude. Dude, like, Magic Johnson and them, that Patrick Ewing, them type of players do not compare nothing to no Dwight Howard, no Shaquille, no, like, Carmelo. Like, bro, them players don't even compare to the players we hit. The Trey Youngs and the Damians. But these people, do y'all see Luka? Have you ever seen a player like Luka in MJ's era? Never. Luka would go to that era and spank them himself. This is real. This is real. There would be nothing they could do with Luka. He would be the best player in the world if he was back then. And I can do that to plenty of other players. I can say that they would be the best. LeBron would be the best. Like, there's so many players you can say because that era was so whack that we 100% know that if there was a Luka back when MJ couldn't even beat that. They're like, he's not built the best, but damn, MJ can't stop him. And this is real. Y'all know this is real. I heard dropping 50 pieces all the, like, and you know he would have dropped 100 back in the jit. He would have been up 80s. Not like y'all know. But but we not about to argue about it. That the players today are just it's hard to get defensive player of the year when you got players like Kawhi and bro MJ ain't never had them players. But I can go on and on about how you can beat kids. You can just beat people about you were ahead of that era. And plus he got my favorite shoes ever. But y'all leave y'all comments below. Y'all let me know what y'all think. Does his championship, do they even count for real? Or like, cause that's no different than me I'm my fault, y'all. But that's no different than me jumping back on the y'all know how the Kareem and the Wilt Chamberlain, those are not the best centers. We all know that we will pick Shaquille O'Neal in his prime over any three of them. Any three of them. We know this. So it's like, look, what really are we debating about? You see how Shaquille's not even in the best of the, but if he faced any of them, he would have been the best against them. They wouldn't have got no defensive, no, man, stop it. He would have bullied them. So it's like, you can try to accumulate for championships to say someone's better, but really in reality, if that person faces him, championships don't matter. Y'all see the Ryan Garcia versus the Devin Haney. Do their championships matter? They don't. It's just a award and to just show that you went places and you've done things. But it doesn't make you better than the next person. You know, and we clearly see this if you have a brain that even works. You know what I'm saying? But y'all let me know what y'all think. You feel me? In my head, I'm going to have to go with LeBron. Obviously. For obvious reasons. You know what I'm saying? But y'all just let me know what y'all think. You feel me? I'll leave a like if y'all fuck with the video. You feel me? Till next time.